The observation deck of the diplomatic vessel Perseverance offered a view that made Captain Day-Ho Kim's chest tighten with a mixture of wonder and unease. The Harmony's capital station hung before them like a massive crystal flower blooming in the void, each petal a different color, pulsing with soft light that seemed almost alive. Thousands of ships from hundreds of worlds drifted around it in perfect synchronization, moving without collision or conflict. It was beautiful. It was terrifying. "Captain, they're responding to our docking request," Hannah Park said from her station. His second officer's voice was steady, but Day-Ho knew her well enough to hear the tension underneath. "They're transmitting compliance protocols for our crew." Day-Ho studied the data scrolling across his screen. The protocols were invasive, requiring biological scans and what the Harmony called harmony synchronization. He knew what that really meant. The resonance field would wash over every human on this ship, trying to suppress their ability to feel aggression, to defend themselves, to say no when it mattered most. "Activate the null generators," Day-Ho ordered quietly. Full coverage, minimal signature. Around the ship, hidden generators came to life, creating an invisible shield that would protect the crew from the field's influence. It was humanity's most closely guarded secret, developed over 50 years of preparation for this exact moment. The Harmony thought humans were primitive, barely worthy of notice. They had no idea how long humanity had been watching them, learning their weaknesses, preparing for the day when they would say no. The docking procedures took 3 hours. When Day-Ho finally stepped into the Harmony station with Ambassador Gi-Woo Choi and a security detail, the air itself seemed to hum with the resonance field. He felt it trying to touch his mind, gentle as a mother's hand, offering peace and calm and compliance. The null generator in his uniform collar pushed it away. "Fascinating architecture," Gi-Woo said, her diplomat's smile firmly in place as they walked through corridors that seemed to be made of solidified light. "Everything designed to inspire tranquility. Everything designed to make you forget you're in a cage," Day-Ho muttered. Low enough that only she could hear Ji-Woo's smile didn't waver, but her eyes flicked to him with approval. She was 73 years old, veteran of Earth's worst diplomatic crises, and she hadn't accepted this assignment because she believed in surrender. She was here because someone needed to look the Harmony in the face and tell them no. The council chamber was vast beyond reason, a sphere of pure light with platforms suspended throughout it. Thousands of beings from across known space floated or stood or coiled on those platforms, all watching as the human delegation was guided to a small platform near the bottom. The symbolism was clear. Humanity was at the bottom of the hierarchy, barely elevated above nothing at all. A being of pure luminescence materialized before them, roughly humanoid but composed of shifting colors that hurt to look at directly. When it spoke, the words came not through sound, but directly into their minds, translated perfectly into Mandarin, English, Korean, and a dozen other human languages simultaneously. "I am Veloris of the Shimmer Collective, first voice of the Harmony Council. We welcome humanity to the embrace of eternal peace." The condescension in the mental voice was palpable. "You have been invited here to receive the greatest gift any species can know. Integration into the resonance, freedom from violence and suffering. A place in the eternal order that has governed the galaxy for 10,000 years." Ji-Woo stepped forward, and despite being a fraction of Veloris's size, she somehow commanded the space around her. "We are honored by the invitation," she said, her voice amplified by the chamber systems to reach every delegate. "However, Earth's government has sent me here not to accept your generous offer, but to propose an alternative arrangement." The light patterns on Veloris shifted in what might have been confusion. Around the chamber, thousands of beings turned their attention fully to the human platform. This wasn't how these meetings went. Species invited to the Harmony either accepted immediately or were given time to understand the futility of refusal. Humanity requests exemption from the resonance field, Ji Woo continued. We wish to trade with Harmony Worlds, to share knowledge and culture, to participate in galactic affairs as equals. But we will not surrender our autonomy to any external force, no matter how benevolent its intentions. The silence that followed was absolute. Daeho's hand drifted unconsciously toward his sidearm, though he knew it would be useless here. Around them, alien faces and forms registered shock, confusion, and something that might have been ancient memory stirring. When Valoris spoke again, the condescension had been replaced by something colder. You misunderstand the nature of our offer. This is not a negotiation. The resonance is absolute. Every species that encounters the harmony must choose integration or isolation. Those who refuse the field are denied access to harmony space, harmony technology, harmony protection. Your territories become restricted zones. You will develop alone, without guidance, without hope of advancement, beyond your current primitive state. And if we refuse isolation as well? Ji Woo asked quietly. Valoris's form brightened, colors shifting toward aggressive reds and oranges. That has never occurred. No species is foolish enough to oppose the united will of 10,000 civilizations. You have 7 cycles to reconsider your position. We grant this time out of compassion for young species who do not yet understand the reality of galactic power. The being paused, and when it continued, the mental voice carried absolute certainty. When we meet again, you will accept the resonance. There is no other outcome possible. The human delegation was dismissed with a wave of light. As they walked back through the crystal corridors toward their ship, Hana moved closer to Daeho. Did that go as expected? She asked quietly. Exactly as expected, Daeho confirmed. They think we're bluffing. They think we'll see their fleet numbers and their technology and realize we have no choice. And if they're right? Hana asked. If we really don't have a choice? Ji Woo answered before Daeho could. Then we'll die free rather than live in chains. But we won't die. She looked back at the crystal station, already shrinking behind them as the Perseverance pulled away. They've been at peace so long they've forgotten what it costs to keep it. We're about to remind them. Back on Earth, in a bunker deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, Director Taeyang Bei received the confirmation signal. The Harmony had refused to negotiate. 7 cycles until they would try to force compliance. He pulled up a tactical display showing humanity's hidden assets scattered throughout the solar system and beyond. Stealth ships the Harmony didn't know existed. Weapons platforms disguised as debris. And most importantly, 50,000 trained soldiers who had been preparing their entire lives for a war the galaxy thought was impossible. Taeyang opened an encrypted channel to every human military installation in known space. The message was simple. Project Dissonance is active. They called our bluff. Show them we weren't bluffing. In 7 cycles, the galaxy would learn that humanity's threat had never been empty words. The Harmony had ruled through forced peace for 10 millennia. That age was about to end, and it would end with humanity's refusal to kneel. The question wasn't whether the Harmony could force humanity to comply. The question was whether the Harmony could survive the answer humanity was about to give them. 52 years before humanity told the Harmony Council no, a deep space probe named Wanderer 7 detected something impossible. Dr. Yuna. Lee had been the one monitoring the data stream that night. Alone in the observatory, except for cold coffee and the quiet hum of computers processing signals from the edge of explored space, the pattern that appeared on her screen made no sense at first. It looked like a quantum field, but it stretched across light years, impossibly uniform, impossibly stable. Yuna ran the analysis 17 times, certain she had made an error. The 18th time confirmed what her instincts had been screaming since the first reading. This was artificial. This was a machine on a scale that made human engineering look like children playing with blocks. She called Soong Kim at 4 a.m. He was younger than Yuna by a decade, a military strategist who had been assigned to the Deep Space Observation Program because someone in Earth's Defense Department had the foresight to wonder what humanity would do if they weren't alone in the universe. Soong arrived at the observatory within an hour, still pulling on his uniform jacket, and stared at the data with growing horror. "It's a suppression field," he said finally. "But what is it suppressing?" That question took 3 years to answer. By then, Yuna had assembled a team of 40 researchers, all working under classification levels so high that most governments didn't know the project existed. They called themselves the Dissonance Group, a dark joke about what they were studying. The field suppressed neural activity associated with aggression, violence, and most importantly, the ability to refuse compliance with authority. It's mind control, Yuna told the emergency session of Earth's Security Council when Project Dissonance finally went public to the highest levels of human government. She stood before presidents and generals and intelligence chiefs, a quantum physicist watt-hour. Suddenly held the fate of humanity in her calculations. Whoever built this thing has turned the entire galaxy into a prison, where the prisoners don't even know they're locked up. The implications were staggering. If the field was that widespread, it meant most of the galaxy was already under its influence. It meant humanity was alone in their ability to resist, simply because they had developed far enough from the galactic center to avoid the field's reach until now. It meant that first contact, when it came, would not be a meeting of equals. It would be a choice between submission and extinction. Sung was the one who convinced the Council to prepare for war. "They're peaceful because they have no choice," he explained. Tactical displays floating in the air around him, showing the field's estimated coverage. But peace enforced at gunpoint is just slavery with better marketing. When they find us, they'll try to bring us into the field. And if we resist, they'll have no framework for understanding that resistance. They've forgotten how to fight, which means they've forgotten how to respect an enemy. Project Dissonance expanded. The goal was simple: understand the field well enough to protect humanity from it, and prepare for the day when that protection would be tested. Yuna led the science team, working 18-hour days to create the null generators that would shield human minds from the resonance. Soong led the military preparation, designing weapons and tactics for fighting an enemy who had forgotten war existed. Min Park joined the project 5 years in, a combat psychologist who had studied conflict resolution in Earth's last major war. They brought something the project desperately needed: an understanding of how to prepare soldiers for a type of combat that had no precedent. The Harmony's peacekeepers would be using non-lethal weapons, trying to subdue rather than kill. Human soldiers would need to overcome 10,000 years of human moral evolution that said killing was wrong, while facing enemies who looked helpless and confused. "We're not training them to be monsters," Min insisted during one heated debate about the ethical implications of the program. "We're training them to hold the line when the entire galaxy tells them to surrender. That's harder than pulling a trigger. That takes strength most people don't have." The training program Min designed was brutal. Soldiers learned to fight under the influence of the resonance field at reduced power, feeling its pull toward peace while forcing themselves to act. They practiced tactical scenarios where the enemy looked like victims, where every instinct screamed at them to stop fighting, to lay down arms, to accept the gentle embrace of compliance. The washout rate was 80%. The ones who made it through were different harder, carrying a weight in their eyes that peacetime soldiers never had. Jae Kwan came to Dissonance from corporate espionage, though their official file listed their background as network security. They were the one who figured out how to infiltrate Harmony communication systems using the same quantum. principles that powered the resonance field. They use quantum entanglement for instantaneous communication. Jay explained to Yuna during one late-night work session. But they've been at peace so long, they barely encrypt anything. They assume compliance. That's their weakness. The infiltration protocols Jay developed would allow human ships to appear as Harmony vessels on sensors, to send orders that would be obeyed without question, to turn the Harmony's own infrastructure against them. It was spycraft on a galactic scale, and it relied entirely on the Harmony's assumption that no one would ever dare to deceive them. 40 years into Project Dissonance, Earth's intelligence services confirmed what they had long suspected. First contact was coming. Harmony scout ships had detected human radio signals, were moving to investigate. Humanity had perhaps a decade, maybe less, before ships arrived in Sol System, bearing gifts of eternal peace and demands for submission. The final 10 years were a race against time. Soong oversaw the construction of the stealth fleet. Ships that used every trick humanity had learned to avoid detection. They were small, fast, and armed with weapons that would shock the Harmony with their brutality. Nuclear missiles, kinetic kill vehicles, weapons designed not to disable or subdue, but to destroy completely. Yuna perfected the null generators, making them small enough to fit in a uniform collar, powerful enough to protect a human mind from the full force of the resonance field. She also made a discovery that she shared with only a handful of people. The field wasn't just suppressing violence. It was suppressing free will itself, the ability to choose anything other than harmony with the collective. Species under the field were alive, conscious, intelligent, but they had lost the fundamental human right to say no. When the Harmony's first contact ship arrived in Sol System, humanity was ready. They smiled and welcomed the visitors and listened to their offer with apparent interest. They agreed to send a diplomatic mission to the Harmony capital. They did everything expected of a primitive species encountering advanced civilization for the first time. But in hidden bases across the solar system, 50,000 soldiers waited. In orbital platforms disguised as space debris, weapons capable of destroying worlds stood ready. And in the minds of every human who knew the truth, a single thought burned bright. They would not submit. Not to the Harmony, not to the resonance field, not to 10,000 years of enforced peace. Soong Kim stood in the command center deep beneath Earth's surface and watched the diplomatic mission depart for Harmony space. Beside him, Yuna watched the same display, her work finally complete. "We're really doing this," she said quietly. "We're going to war with the entire galaxy." "We're not going to war," Soong corrected. "We're refusing to surrender. There's a difference. War is what happens when they try to make us." The message from Ambassador Ji Woo Choi arrived 7 days later. The Harmony had refused to negotiate. They had 7 cycles to comply or face isolation. Soong read the message twice, then sent the activation codes to every dissonance asset in human space. The Harmony thought humanity's threat was a bluff because they couldn't imagine species who remembered how to fight. They were about to learn that humanity had never forgotten, and more than that, humanity had spent 50 years preparing for this exact moment. The galaxy had been at peace for 10,000 years. That peace was about to shatter, and the sound of its breaking would echo across the stars. Commander Ray Yun watched the Harmony fleet emerge from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system and felt her mouth go dry despite years of preparation. The tactical display showed 3,000 ships, each one larger than anything humanity had ever built, arranged in perfect formation that stretched across millions of kilometers. Beautiful and terrible, like watching a tsunami roll toward shore. "Fleet Sigma 7 has entered detection range," reported her sensor officer from the Lunar Command Station. "They're broadcasting the standard compliance message on all channels." Ray listened to the message with half her attention. The other half was checking the readiness status of Earth's defense grid. Weapon platforms that looked like asteroids powered up in the dark. Stealth ships began moving into attack positions, invisible to Harmony sensors that had never been designed to detect hostile intent. 50 years of preparation coming down to the next few hours dot. The compliance message was exactly what dissonance protocols had predicted. Gentle, understanding, infinitely patient. The Harmony fleet had come to help humanity understand the error of their refusal. They would project the resonance field at full strength. Human leaders would feel the peace, the certainty, the rightness of joining the eternal harmony. Resistance would simply melt away like ice under summer sun. They really think we'll just give up when we feel their field, Ray said to her second officer. 50 years we've known about them, and they still think we're primitives who stumbled into their territory by accident. Captain Wan Xin commanded the stealth carrier Silent Blade, positioned 300,000 kilometers from the Harmony fleet's lead elements. His ship and 70 others, like it were humanity's first strike capability, loaded with weapons that would introduce the Harmony to concepts they thought they had evolved beyond. He listened to the compliance message with cold focus, watching the Harmony ships drift forward in their perfect, peaceful formation. All wings report ready, his tactical officer said. Awaiting your order, sir. Juan looked at the fleet display one more time. 3,000 ships crewed by beings who had never fought a battle, never trained for combat, never even conceived of refusing an order from the Harmony Council. They were coming to save humanity from itself, with the absolute certainty of those who had never been told no. Hold position, Juan ordered. Let them get closer. Let them think it's working. The Harmony fleet advanced, and as they did, the resonance field swept before them like an invisible wave. On Earth, people felt it. A sudden sense of peace, of calm, of certainty that resistance was foolish and compliance was safety. In cities across the planet, citizens felt the pull toward acceptance. Some of them, those without null generators, felt their determination waver. Maybe the Harmony was right. Maybe peace was worth any price. But in the military command centers, in the ships waiting in ambush, in the hearts of those who had trained for this moment, the null generators held. The field washed over them and broke like water on stone. They felt its pull and pushed back, 50,000 trained minds refusing the gift of forced peace. Harmony fleet is within optimal firing range, the tactical officer reported. All targets locked. Ray opened the command channel that connected her to every human military asset in the solar system. Hundreds of ships, thousands of weapon platforms, 50,000 soldiers waiting for the word. She thought about the speech she could give, about inspiring words and noble causes. Then she thought about what these soldiers already knew, what they had trained their entire lives to do. All units, Ray said simply. Fire. The solar system lit up with violence the Harmony had thought extinct. Nuclear-tipped missiles launched from hidden platforms, their drives screaming across the void. Kinetic kill vehicles accelerated to fractions of light speed, invisible until impact. The stealth fleet dropped their concealment and opened fire with weapons designed for one purpose: to destroy completely. The Harmony fleet's shields were impressive. They could stop compliance beams, stasis fields, and every non-lethal weapon in the Harmony arsenal. They had never been designed to stop a 5-ton tungsten rod traveling at 30% of light speed. The first impacts tore through shields like paper, shearing through Harmony ships and turning them into clouds of debris. Lieutenant Hyojin piloted her strike fighter through the chaos, her squadron following in tight formation. The Harmony ships were trying to respond, but their weapons were designed to disable and capture, not to fight. Compliance beams washed over her fighter, trying to shut down her aggression. Her null generator kept her focused, and she put 2 missiles into a Harmony cruiser's reactor core The ship came apart in a ball of exotic matter annihilation, and Hyojin felt nothing but grim satisfaction. This was what they had trained for. This was humanity's answer to 10,000 years of forced peace. In the command center on Luna, Ray watched the tactical display update in real time. The Harmony fleet was in chaos. Ships collided as they tried to maneuver without any concept of combat tactics. Their commanders broadcast demands for humanity to stop, to explain, to understand that violence was impossible and wrong and against every law of civilized space. Harmony fleet is attempting to withdraw, her sensor officer reported. Lead elements are breaking formation. Let them go, Ray ordered. But make sure some of them survive to report back. The Council needs to know this wasn't luck. The battle lasted 90 minutes. When it ended, 1,500 Harmony ships were debris fields. Another 800 were crippled, broadcasting distress signals that human ships ignored. The remaining 700 fled back toward Harmony space at maximum speed, their crews traumatized by the first violence they had ever witnessed. Humanity's losses were 43 ships and 2,000 soldiers. Every single one of them had known the risks. Every single one of them had chosen to fight rather than submit. On the Harmony capital station, Valores received the reports with something like disbelief. The human species had not merely refused the resonance. They had attacked. They had killed. They had done things that were supposed to be impossible, that violated the fundamental laws of civilized behavior. This changes nothing, Valores declared to the emergency council session. They are barbarians, primitives who have not evolved beyond violence. We will send the Resonance Armada, 1 million ships crewed by volunteers from every member species. We will show humanity that violence cannot stand against the united peace of the galaxy. But in the council chamber, some delegates were silent. Some were remembering things they thought they had forgotten, old instincts that the resonance field had suppressed for millennia. The humans had fought back. More than that, they had won. For species that had been integrated into the Harmony by 4 centuries ago, that victory whispered a question they had been unable to ask for generations. What if they could fight back too? On Earth, Sung Kim stood in the command center and watched the casualty reports come in. 2,000 dead, 15 times that number wounded. The price of saying no to the galaxy. He thought about the million-ship armada the Harmony would send, about the war that was really beginning now. Was it worth it? Yuna asked quietly beside him. She had watched the battle from the science station, had seen her null generators hold against the full force of the resonance field, had seen the weapons she helped create tear through Harmony ships. Ask me again when it's over, Sung said. But Yuna, they blinked first. The entire galaxy just learned that humanity won't submit, and more importantly, they learned that the Harmony can bleed. That's going to matter. Admiral Xiao Quang broadcast a message to every human in the solar system. His face appeared on screens across Earth, Mars, the orbital colonies, the outer system stations. He looked tired and grim, and absolutely certain. Today, humanity fought its first battle against the Galactic Harmony, Xiao said. We won, but the war is just beginning. The Harmony will send more ships, more demands, more promises of peace if we just surrender. We will refuse. We will fight. And we will show this galaxy that forced peace is just another word for slavery. And humanity will never accept chains, no matter how comfortable they claim to be. The message ended. And across human space, people prepared for what was coming. The Harmony had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. Humanity had been free for its entire existence. One of those facts was about to change, and it wouldn't be humanity's freedom. The Resonance Armada arrived at the edge of the solar system like the wrath of gods. 1 million ships from 1,000 worlds, the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. They emerged from faster than light in perfect synchronization, a wall of vessels stretching across the void, and began their advance toward Earth with the unstoppable certainty of the righteous. Commander Yoon Park watched them come from the bridge of the stealth destroyer Shadow's Edge. And despite every simulation, every war game, every tactical briefing, the sheer scale of what humanity was facing made her breath catch. Her ship was one of 90 vessels in Black Fleet, humanity's rapid response force. 90 ships against 1 million. The odds made their assignment simple. They weren't expected to win. They were expected to make the Harmony bleed. All ships report ready, her executive officer said quietly. The fleet is waiting for your signal, Commander. Yoon studied the tactical display, looking for the patterns Soon Kim had predicted would be there. The armada was massive, but it was also ponderous. The Harmony had never fought a real war, had no concept of combat tactics beyond overwhelming force and numerical superiority. Their ships moved in tight formation, protecting each other with overlapping shields, broadcasting the resonance field at maximum strength. They're doing exactly what the simulations predicted, Yoon said. Target the command vessels. Hit and run. Never stay in one place long enough for them to coordinate a response. Make them afraid of the dark. Black Fleet struck from 6 different vectors simultaneously, stealth fields dropping just long enough to launch missiles and kinetic weapons before disappearing back into the void. Harmony command ships exploded, and the Armada's perfect formation began to fracture as ships tried to respond to threats they couldn't track. On Earth, Major Hyan Beak led his boarding teams toward their targets. While Black Fleet kept the Armada distracted, assault shuttles slipped through the chaos and latched onto Harmony vessels like parasites. Hyan's team cut through the hull of a Harmony battleship in under 30 seconds, explosive charges peeling back layers of exotic metal to expose the corridors inside. The Harmony crew didn't even try to fight. They stood in the corridors looking confused and frightened, unable to understand what was happening. These were beings who had never experienced violence, whose entire existence had been shaped by the resonance field's promise of eternal peace. Now humans in combat armor were among them, weapons ready, faces hidden behind helmets. Secure the bridge, Hyan ordered his team. Non-lethal when possible. We need prisoners who can talk. They moved through the ship, meeting almost no resistance. A few Harmony crew tried to use their compliance weapons, broadcasting waves of forced calm and peace. The human null generators shrugged off the effects, and the Harmony crew surrendered when they realized their weapons were useless. Within 20 minutes, Hyan's team controlled the battleship's bridge. Upload the package, Hyan told his technical specialist. Let's show them what they've really been doing to the galaxy. The package was Dr. Eziel Rowe's masterwork, a virus designed to infiltrate the resonance field's control network and broadcast the truth about what it really did. Eziel had spent 3 years building it, 3 years studying the field's quantum architecture and finding its vulnerabilities. Now her work would spread throughout Harmony space like wildfire. On the capital station, Veloras watched the battle reports with growing horror. The Armada wasn't losing, not exactly. They still had overwhelming numerical superiority. But the humans were making them pay for every light year they advanced. Harmony ships were dying by the hundreds. Their crews exposed to violence for the first time in their lives and psychologically shattering from the experience. Then Eziel's virus reached the resonance field's central nexus, and everything changed. Across Harmony space, millions of beings suddenly saw the truth. The resonance field wasn't protecting them from violence. It was suppressing their ability to choose. It was taking away their free will, their capacity to say no, their fundamental right to determine their own fate. They had been living in a prison so complete that they hadn't even known they were prisoners. The reaction was immediate and catastrophic. On worlds that had been forcibly integrated into the harmony centuries ago, old memories stirred. Ekreth remembered being warriors before the field turned them docile. The Vryn remembered refusing integration before harmony peacekeepers bombarded their cities into submission and flooded their world with the resonance. The Torak remembered their gods of war and battle before the field made them forget that conflict could be holy. Resistance movements sparked on dozens of worlds. Some were peaceful, simple refusals to obey harmony directives. Others were violent, species rediscovering their capacity for rage and turning it against the infrastructure that had controlled them. The Kreth began building warships again. The Vryn started attacking harmony installations on their homeworld. The Torak declared independence and dared the Council to try stopping them. The Armada, advancing on Earth, began to fracture from within. Ships crewed by species who suddenly remembered being conquered refused orders. Some turned around and headed home to liberate their worlds. Others simply stopped, their crews too traumatized by the revelation to continue. EUN Park watched the Armada dissolve in real time, and even she felt a moment of pity for them. These weren't enemies. They were victims who had been forced to fight for their oppressors. All Black Fleet units, cease offensive operations, she ordered. Let them go. This isn't their war anymore. On the Harmony Capital Station, the council chamber descended into chaos. Delegates who had believed in the resonance for their entire lives now questioned everything. Species demanded explanations, justifications, and most of all, they demanded freedom. The 10,000-year-old government that had ruled through enforced peace began to collapse. Veloras stood at the center of the chamber, watching everything fall apart. The Shimmer Collective had been among the Harmony's founding species, had helped build the resonance field with a genuine belief that they were saving the galaxy from itself. Now that belief lay in ruins, shattered by a species the Council had dismissed as primitive. A communication request came through from the human diplomatic vessel Perseverance. Ambassador Ji-Woo Choi's face appeared on displays throughout the council chamber, and her expression was not triumphant. She looked tired and sad and determined. Members of the Harmony Council, Ji-Woo began, humanity did not start this war to destroy you. We started it because you gave us no choice except submission or death. Now you have a choice to make. You can try to hold on to your power, try to force species back under the resonance field, and watch your civilization tear itself apart in civil war. Or you can do what you should have done 10,000 years ago. Trust the people of this galaxy to choose their own fate. Veloras listened to the humans' words and felt something break inside. The Harmony had been built on the certainty that forced peace was better than the possibility of war. That certainty was gone, destroyed by a species who had shown the galaxy that choice mattered more than safety. What would you have us do? Veloras asked, and the question was broadcast across Harmony space. Your virus has destroyed the faith that held our civilization together. Species are declaring independence, building weapons, preparing for wars that will kill billions. You broke the Harmony. What will you put in its place? Ji-Woo's answer was simple and devastating. Nothing. We're not going to rule you. We're going to teach you how to be free, and then we're going to let you figure out what that means. Some of you will choose peace. Some will choose war. Some will make mistakes that cost millions of lives. That's the price of freedom. It's messy and dangerous and terrifying, and it's the only thing worth having. The transmission ended, and the council chamber fell silent. Around Harmony space, species were making their choices. Some chose to stay in the Harmony under a reformed government. Others declared independence. The Kreth, remembering their warrior past, began a campaign of expansion that would need to be stopped. The gentle Lysara, defenseless without the field, called for help from anyone who would listen. And humanity, the species that had broken the Harmony, found itself in a role it never expected. Not as conquerors or liberators, but as teachers and protectors for a galaxy learning to be free. Soon, Kim stood in the command center and watched the galactic map update as the harmony dissolved. Hundreds of new nations appearing where there had been one government. Trade routes disrupting. Conflicts sparking. The galaxy was becoming chaotic and dangerous and uncertain. "We did this," Una said beside him, watching the same display. "We broke 10,000 years of peace." "We broke 10,000 years of slavery," Soong corrected. "What happens next is up to them. But at least now it's their choice." The war for Earth was over. The war for the galaxy's soul was just beginning. And humanity would have to help prevent the freedom they had fought for from destroying everything it touched. 5 years after the harmony shattered, Admiral Dae-ho Kim stood on the bridge of the reconciliation and watched a world burn. Not from weapons or war, but from the chaos of newfound freedom without the knowledge to maintain it. The Lysara homeworld had been peaceful under the harmony. A garden planet where gentle beings studied art and philosophy under the protection of the resonance field. Now they were dying by the millions as the Kreth, rediscovering their warrior culture, swept through Lysara space, taking what they wanted. Kreth battle fleet is holding position at the outer system, his tactical officer reported. "They're not backing down, Admiral." Dae-ho studied the tactical display with grim focus. The Kreth had 12 warships, newly built designs that combined harmony technology with recovered knowledge of their pre-integration military. They were here to claim Lysara as territory, as resources, as conquest. And they would fight any who tried to stop them, drunk on the freedom to wage war after centuries of forced pacifism. "Open a channel to the Kreth commander," Dae-ho ordered. "Let's see if they remember why humanity broke the harmony in the first place." The Kreth commander appeared on screen, a being of scales and sharp edges, eyes burning with the certainty of the righteous. "Human Admiral," the commander said in heavily accented but understandable language. "The Lysara are weak. They chose peace even when given freedom. That weakness has no place in the new galaxy. Stand aside or be swept aside with them." Dae-ho had heard this argument before. Freedom meant the strong could prey on the weak. The end of the harmony meant the end of protection for those who couldn't or wouldn't fight. It was logical in its way. It was also exactly what humanity had sworn to prevent. "We didn't break the harmony so you could rebuild it with yourself on top," Dae-ho said quietly. "The Lysara chose peace. That's their right. Your right to choose ends where their right to exist begins. You have one chance to withdraw before I show you why humanity is still the most dangerous species in this galaxy." The Kreth commander laughed, a harsh sound like rocks grinding. "You taught us to fight, human. Now you'll learn we learned well." The channel closed. The Kreth fleet advanced. And Dae-ho gave the order that had become too familiar over the past 5 years. "All weapons, free fire. Show them the difference between warriors and predators." The battle was brief. Humanity had spent 5 years helping species build defense fleets, but they had kept their best weapons for themselves. The Reconciliation and her sister ships tore through the Kreth, formation with precision that spoke of decades of combat experience. Within 30 minutes, half the Kreth fleet was debris. The survivors fled, and Dae-ho let them go, knowing they would carry word of what happened when predators met protectors. On Earth, General Nario watched the battle reports and felt the weight of responsibility that had become humanity's burden. She commanded the Federation Training Command, responsible for teaching former Harmony species how to defend themselves without becoming conquerors. It was delicate work, walking the line between self-defense and aggression. "The Torak are requesting advanced weapons," her aide reported. "They say the Kreth are threatening their borders." "Deny the request," Nari said, after reviewing the intelligence reports. The Torok aren't being threatened. They want weapons to expand their territory. Send them defensive platforms instead, and a training team for guerrilla warfare. Make it clear that humanity will help them defend their worlds, but we won't enable expansion wars. It was the same conversation she had 3 times a week with different species. Everyone wanted the weapons that had broken the harmony. Few understood that those weapons came with responsibilities humanity had reigned through centuries of their own wars. The galaxy was learning the hard way that freedom included the freedom to make terrible mistakes. Engineer Jin Seo worked on a very different kind of construction, overseeing the orbital defenses for worlds that had chosen peace in the new galaxy. The Lysara were his current project, and he worked with their engineers to build platforms that could defend without requiring the Lysara to become warriors themselves. This shield network will protect your major cities. Jin explained to the Lysara Council. The automated defense platforms can be operated by a small crew. You don't have to change who you are to survive. You just need to make aggression too expensive for predators to afford. The Lysara leader, a being of soft blue skin and large eyes that had seen too much death, touched Jin's hand in gratitude. Humanity gave us freedom, then stayed to teach us how to keep it. We will remember this kindness. Jin thought about the 2,000 humans who died in the first battle, about the 50,000 who had served in the 5 years since, about the 100 ships lost protecting worlds that couldn't protect themselves. It's not kindness, he said honestly. It's responsibility. We broke the harmony. Now we have to make sure freedom doesn't destroy what peace protected. Ambassador Ji-Woo Choi stood before the First Federation, assembly in a chamber built from the ruins of the Harmony's capital station. Representatives from 100 worlds filled the space, some former Harmony members, some newly independent nations, all equal under the Federation Charter. It had taken 5 years of negotiation, countless compromises, and more than a few threats of human military intervention to get here. The Galactic Harmony ruled through force disguised as peace. Ji-Woo began, her voice carrying to every delegate. They suppressed your will and called it protection. They took your choices and called it civilization. Humanity refused that bargain, and in refusing, we destroyed the system that bound you all. She paused, letting the weight of that history settle. Some of you have celebrated that freedom by preying on your neighbors. Others have struggled to defend yourselves in a galaxy that suddenly remembers how to kill. And all of you have wondered whether freedom was worth the price. Around the chamber, delegates shifted. This was the question that haunted every former Harmony world. The resonance field had prevented war, had protected the weak, had guaranteed peace even if it cost them their autonomy. Now species were dying in conflicts that would have been impossible under the Harmony. Was freedom really better than safety? I can't tell you that freedom is always better, Ji-Woo admitted. I can tell you that choice is always better than slavery, even when the chains are comfortable. The Federation we're building today is not the Harmony rebuilt. It has no resonance field, no forced compliance, no surrender of autonomy. What it offers instead is cooperation by choice, protection through alliance, and the promise that humanity will stand between predators and prey until you're all strong enough to stand alone. The vote on the Federation Charter took 3 hours. When it passed, nearly unanimous, Ji-Woo felt something release in her chest that she hadn't known she was holding. The galaxy wasn't fixed. It would never be the sterile peace of the Harmony again. But it would be free, and that had to be enough dot on Earth. Young Choi watched her mother's speech from the Federation Academy, where she was training to be a diplomat in the new galactic order. She was 18 years old, part of the first generation growing up in a galaxy where humanity was known not just as the species that broke the Harmony, but as the ones who taught freedom to those who had forgotten it. Her instructor, a Kreth warrior who had learned to channel aggression into protection, approached as the assembly voted. "Your mother changed the galaxy," the instructor said. "Does that frighten you?" "No," Young said honestly. "What frightens me is the responsibility. Humanity didn't just give the galaxy freedom. We promised to help them keep it. That's going to take generations." The instructor made a sound like approval. "Then it's good your generation understands the weight. The Kreth were warriors before the Harmony made us docile. We thought that meant we should dominate when we were freed. Your people taught us that strength means protecting those weaker than ourselves. That's a harder lesson than how to fight." Across the galaxy, species were learning similar lessons. The Harmony had fallen, but the chaos that followed was slowly organizing into something new. Not perfect, not even truly peaceful, but genuine in a way the enforced Harmony had never been. Veloras of the Shimmer Collective served as an advisor to the Lasara now, helping them navigate galactic politics without military strength to back their positions. In a quiet moment, Veloras met with Admiral Daeho Kim on a neutral station, two veterans of the war that had changed everything. "I spent 10,000 years believing we had created paradise," Veloras said quietly. "The Harmony seemed perfect because we had forgotten what we had sacrificed to build it. When your species refused the resonance, I thought you were primitives who didn't understand civilization. I was wrong about everything." Daeho looked at the former council member with understanding. "You weren't wrong about wanting peace. You were wrong about the price you asked others to pay for it. Peace without freedom is just slow death. Your Harmony was a beautiful cage, and humanity would rather die fighting than live in cages, no matter how beautiful. And now you keep the peace you destroyed," Veloras observed. "That seems contradictory." "We don't keep the peace," Daeho corrected. "We keep the predators from eating the peaceful." "There's a difference. The Lysara chose peace. The Torek chose aggressive neutrality. The Kreth chose to relearn warfare. All valid choices. What's not valid is the Kreth deciding their choice means they can take the Lysara's choice away. That's just the Harmony with different management." Veloras was silent for a long moment. "I thought your threat was a bluff because we could no longer imagine anyone choosing freedom over safety. We had forgotten that safety without choice is just another word for surrender. You reminded us of that truth, and it cost millions of lives. Was it worth it?" Daeho thought about the question that had haunted humanity for 5 years. "Ask me again in a century, when the species you suppressed have learned to stand on their own. But Veloras, I've seen the Lysara building defenses with joy because they chose to build them. I've seen the Kreth learning that strength means protection, not domination. I've seen 100 worlds making mistakes and learning from them instead of being kept safe from ever making mistakes at all. So yes, I think it was worth it. Freedom always is, even when it's messy and dangerous and costs more than we wanted to pay." The conversation ended, and two beings who had been enemies watched ships from 100 worlds dock at the station, trading and talking and occasionally arguing, all of it genuine in a way the Harmony's enforced peace had never been. Humanity hadn't saved the galaxy. They had simply reminded it that peace without freedom was no peace at all, and that the capacity to fight wasn't humanity's curse, but their gift to a galaxy that had forgotten how to defend what mattered. The age of the Harmony was over. The age of sovereign choice, with all its danger and possibility, had begun, and humanity stood watch, not as rulers or saviors, but as the ones who remembered that freedom was always worth fighting for.